my man.
How you doing?
Welcome to the Justin and Gary podcast, brother.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How's your day going, brother?
Really good, really good. It's a beautiful day up here in Northern California. It's been raining here, which has been really nice. I have like that post-rain kind of nice kind of nice cloudy, but also a little sunny weather. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's raining here too, but I mean, I think it gets a little cooler over there, if I'm not mistaken, because here we're always chilling in the 80s in Miami.
Really, even in the winters?
Yeah, dude.
Damn. Oh
It'll
my God.
drop like maybe like into the 70s. But dude, I've been on Christmas and I'm like, yo, can we go to the beach?
That's how it was when I lived in Southern California. It's that warm, but I've only been to Florida. I've never been to Florida in the winter, so I've never actually like experienced a Florida winter. But that makes sense. It'd be that warm.
Yeah, dude. I'm really glad we get to talk, man. And I want to let everybody know I was in a course that Trace offered called Spiral Dynamics and Understanding the Spiral. And that course, bro, it really helped me a lot. I don't know if you remember the first day, I was like, yeah, I have a vague understanding. I kind of see it like karate belts, and just being able to go through it was awesome. And I'll definitely put all your info, man, so people could reach out to you. But I really wanted to, we could talk about a variety of things, but I feel like the spiral would be just a bit more on point coming out of the course. um Bro, how did you get into that stuff?
Yeah, so my dad has been teaching spiral dynamics, and for anyone listening who doesn't know what spiral dynamics is, it's a psychological development model that maps the patterns of growth in individuals and collectives. So it shows how individual humans grow over the course of their lives, and also how groups grow. So how communities, how countries grow, and it maps this development throughout the course of history, and it also maps this development throughout people's lives right now. So it's very fascinating how you can look historically and see how human beings and collectives and groups grew throughout these stages of development. And then you can also see right now how they go through these stages of development in their lives right now.
Yeah, I
So
should
yeah,
I
my
should say I should just sorry to cut you off, but I should say that I think the common human in the world hasn't heard of the word spiral dynamics.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not a super mainstream model. It's not really a household name. It's used in a lot of psychology circles, spirituality circles. It's kind of used in sort of more kind of academic circles, which is great. But I think really the power of it recently has been how it's kind of been permeating the mainstream a little bit more. So yeah, so my dad has been teaching spiral dynamics. My dad is Rob Bell, spiritual teacher, author, creative.
Yeah.
He's been teaching spiral dynamics for the past, like, I think he said like over a decade. Like I remember when I was in like middle school, I remember him talking about spiral dynamics. So I grew up in a family, both my mom and him have a knowledge and an understanding of it, and he was teaching it. So I grew up in a family where they were using the vernacular and kind of talking about it. So I kind of grew up with the language a lot, but I didn't really fully understand it. And then 2 years ago, when I was 21, my dad just sat me down, and it was a very Rob Bell moment. He sat down with like two blank white sheets of paper with a marker, and he was like, "Listen," I was like, I'm gonna explain spiral dynamics to you." And then he just wrote it out on these two sheets of paper, which was pretty awesome. And then I saved the two sheets of paper. I had them saved in my room for a while because it was just like an awesome moment. So he sat down and kind of really explained the whole model to me and really explained all the implications of it. And it was great because it was kind of like I had already heard so much about it growing up, that it was just really putting like language framework to a lot of stuff that I had already like knew and kind of intuited and experienced. So it was really awesome how I was able to see my own growth in the model, understand others' growth, and understand like other dynamics around me through the model. So yeah, so it was really my dad. Really, I'm super fortunate and lucky that I had a dad that was, had such a great knowledge of it, and was teaching it, and then we just sat down and just helped me learn it.
Totally, bro. Totally. Yeah, I wanna jump in there and say, like, dude, your dad's really been a massive influence in my life spiritually. And yeah, dude,
Same.
like I can remember being like in high school and like we went into like chapel and then the guy put on like an old school Numa video. Your pops had like some blonde hair, bro.
Yeah, I remember that.
And dude, like ever since then, I was like 16, but I remember going to college and I remember that name and I typed it in and I was like, oh, I started learning and learning and learning. When he came to Miami, I actually got to meet him because
Oh, nice.
yeah, he did like a thing here and like, dude, he was so cool. Like when I went up to him, I was like, bro, like I've been looking at you, watching you since like high school and like this and this. And then he goes, and now we are here.
That's totally something he would say. And you actually, that was a really good impression of him too. That's exactly like what he would say and how he would say it too.
And I was just like, it was almost like this whole consciousness thing, like the present moment, like he's bringing it here. And I was like, yeah, that's totally like Rabonic, like you would say that. But yeah, and then I think I went, he came back to Miami and I was at a bookstore and he was doing like signing or whatever for books. And oddly enough, it was the day, like his show was the day of a Clásico, Madrid and Barca. And I'm like super Barca, but I was like even more Barca, so I couldn't miss the game. And he's like, "Are you coming tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Dude, there's like this big game. Like I can." He's like, "What? Like a soccer game?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Dude, like just come." I'm like, "I don't even have tickets." He's like, "Don't worry, just show up and like tell them you're on the list." And bro, I missed the game and I went to the conference and everything, bro.
I love that story. I love that story also because I know my dad's a big soccer fan too. So um yeah, that's hilarious. That's
That was
awesome.
cool. Yeah, it was funny. It was funny, man. We were like, he does this thing. Well, I don't know if he still does it, where he like took a picture with everyone that was in attendance.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember being on tour with him and like yeah, afterwards it was like there would just be a long line and he would just like take pictures and sign stuff with everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, bro. And like I was like, yeah, what? That's so cool. And we like, that's where I was just like, this guy's unique, So I say all that to everybody listening because, yeah, Trace's dad just had a massive impact on my life and still does, spiritually. And then obviously through him, like I heard you on his podcast, and then I saw you were taking courses, and I was like, man, like this guy seems like friggin' dope as hell too. So I gotta connect with him, man.
Man, I love it. Yeah, thank you for all that. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
my dad's the best. I'm grateful that he's my father every day. I mean, he's been an amazing influence, amazing. He's my best friend. He's just an amazing person.
That's badass, bro.
Yeah,
That's badass, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I gotta watch some Man United with you guys or something, bro.
yeah. That would be amazing. Yeah, we've been talking about going out to a game. We've been talking about we've been kind of talking about making a trip out to England at some point to go to Premier League. He likes Liverpool, so he really wants to go to Anfield.
Oh
And
shit.
yeah, which I would be down to go to Anfield. I would just be in enemy territory. But he also wants to go to Old Trafford too. But we were discussing it for a while. But when I was in college, it was kind of harder because I was busier with college, and then COVID hit, and that kind of like shut down travel. So I think sometime soon he has a European tour next year. So I think we're gonna hit up some stadiums.
Vibe,
And
bro.
yeah,
Vibe, man. I mean,
yeah.
either if it's Anfield or Old Trafford, like you're around some diehard fans and you're gonna have an incredible experience.
Definitely. I've never been to a Premier League game either, so I really want to check out Premier League.
Fire, fire. But yeah, I just wanted to say that to everyone listening, because Rob Bell is like a really just notable figure in the world. I think he was in Time Magazine, a top 100 most influential people. So yeah, it's been really good. But going back to the spiral, I want to say for me, coming out of your course, I started reflecting more. I guess I want to know like, okay, where am I in the stream of consciousness? Like, because it's hard not to make it a goal to open up your mind into different levels. But I guess because I'm a trainer, I'm a coach. I've always been about, this blue way of seeing the world. And you can put that blue way into the spiral, right? And see it like that. And I'm trying to grow my consciousness. So for everyone that's not so familiar with the whole things and these colors and stuff, but what would you say is the best way for a human being to grow their consciousness?
Great question. And I would say everything you said is so important because you're right. It's you don't want when people learn the spiral, oftentimes they view it in a very hierarchical nature of like there's certain levels that are better than other levels and more advanced, and I just want to like move up as far as I can. And it's like that impulse is good in a sense because it means that people want to grow and want to expand their consciousness and grow into
Mhm.
more levels of depth of complexity and intricacy. But that can also be a bit of a trap of just viewing it as so achievement based of like I just want to achieve this level. So it's a bit of a paradox of like your goals should be to grow and open up and open to more worldviews and more perspectives and increase your compassion and empathy for others and move into these higher levels of development. At the same time, it shouldn't become just another thing you're trying to achieve, you know? So it's like it's a bit of a paradox. And I would
Yeah.
say that the most important thing to me is I think one of the most profound implications of the spiral is that you in order to grow, you have to remain open-minded and you have to be able to see yourself in others. What keeps so many people stuck in their lives is they're not open-minded. They're committed to certain kinds of beliefs. So they spend their lives kind of defending just certain kinds of beliefs that they have, and they're not
Yeah.
open at all to other ways of viewing the world and other perspectives. And it keeps people stuck because they're constantly just defending their perspective, and they think their perspective is the only right one. So to me, I mean, the classic example of that is you have like a fundamentalist Christian arguing with like a fundamentalist atheist, and the fundamentalist Christian is saying God exists, and the atheist is saying no, God doesn't exist. Why don't you believe what I believe? And the Christian is saying why don't you believe what I believe? And it's like they're just butting heads because both of those people are just defending their perspectives and not seeing they're not seeing their other perspectives and not acknowledging they're just viewing that their truth is the only right one. So I would say for the spiral maps how humans get stuck in these certain perspectives and just get stuck defending their beliefs. And then you see, this is why we have so much kind of dysfunction and so many disagreements and so much arguing in our culture and society, is because there's all these different perspectives that think that their perspective is the only right one. And they're constantly trying to push their viewpoints on the other people. So I would say the most important thing for growing on the spiral and evolving your consciousness is to remain, I would call it like radically open-minded, which doesn't mean you just believe anything that anyone says. It just means that you keep an open mind and you don't have that defensiveness about your own position. You recognize that
Yeah.
your position can grow. You can change your views. Changing your views is, a lot of people think that like changing your views is a bad thing or something. It's actually a very positive thing. It means you're growing and developing. So I would say the most important thing is to really, instead of taking this kind of defensive perspective towards others that might not have your same viewpoints and values, actually trying to understand them, trying to understand things that are outside your paradigm and really pushing yourself and expanding yourself. That's the most important thing.
So good, man. That's so good. I mean, I think that's what keeps society stuck, or not just society, but individual humans, is being so strong-headed, because in some regard it's healthy to be strong on your beliefs, right? Because don't be loose about everything. But there is again a paradox of like to be strong and have faith in what you believe, but hold it open at the same time.
Yes. Yep.
Development. And that's hard to do. That takes somebody who has like a high level of, I want to say, consciousness and present to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. The paradox is like a inherent theme in growth and spirituality in the spiral, where it's about having beliefs about reality is very powerful. I mean, having the belief that one of the beliefs I hold is that life is being done for us rather than life happening to us. Not taking this victim mentality of life is when things don't go my way. Not taking that perspective of like, I'm a victim in this situation. Life is happening to me and I'm just helpless. It's actually viewing everything in my life, all the challenge, all the trials, all the tribulations is actually something happening for me and happening for my growth. So that's a very like, that's a belief that's a belief I hold very strongly, and is very important for my life. And then like holding that belief very strongly is like really important, but it's also those kind of healthy beliefs are really important to hold strongly. But the beliefs that are about separation, and the beliefs about that, you know, my tribe, my clan is the only right one. Everyone else is enemies, or all the non-believers are going to hell and they're the bad people. They're the enemies. Like the beliefs that create separation, when those beliefs are held onto, then you get the fighting and the separation that we see in a lot of our society. So it's about seeing what kind of beliefs, and you're also right. It's about holding your beliefs that you really feel in your heart strongly, but also recognizing that it's not about constantly defending them and constantly trying to push them on others. So it's a balance. It's tricky.
It is, man. It is. When you were talking earlier and I asked you about consciousness, you said that word awareness. And for some reason, I've always seen them synonymous with one another. And you know, it's interesting. Like I hear this word now more than ever. Like at 34, I'm like, man, like I've been hearing this word a lot more than I did 10 years ago. And words like consciousness, awareness, presence, it's energy. Like it's so much more present in today's conversation than it was 10 years ago. Do you feel like something's happening to society and consciousness where we're really valuing these words?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that more and more people are waking up. More and more people are waking up to they're waking up spiritually, and they're really, these words are going from just being words to actually having like a real kind of experiential quality to them. Like presence isn't just something, presence, consciousness, awareness, they aren't just kind of like words to people anymore. They're actually like pointing to something very real and very true in their hearts. So those words have been, I mean, across the centuries, the many centuries of spiritual teachings, those words have been used by all different types of traditions, and to point to something, to point to what's always here and what's right, what's always now, which is the presence that we feel right now. The awareness that we feel right now is always here, always right now. And spirituality boils down to connecting back to the present moment and living in the present moment. So these words are just very helpful pointers that are pointing people to that. And it's interesting because my dad and I did a whole series called Saturday School where we talked about awareness. And it was interesting watching different people's reaction to it, because people would kind of attach to the word itself and kind of think that we were like, I had to tell them, like, the word awareness is not a descriptor, it's a pointer. Like, we're not trying to describe some sort of philosophy or ideology. We're actually trying to point to something that's really real and right here. And actually, so that's why spiritual teachings get tricky, because you can't actually describe the indescribable, which is what you're doing with spirituality. So you have to use words in a very skillful way that kind of points people back to what's always here and what's always now.
Yes. You know, I every time we talk about spirituality, or when I talk about spirituality with someone, I always try to think, like, how does this apply in everyday living? Because sometimes we get caught like in the spiritual yogi realms, and it's like, well, what does this have to do with me pouring coffee or sucking? You know? And I think about like business, right? And I love that world as well. And one of the biggest like business influencers, best entrepreneurs, Gary Vee. Like, I love that guy. And he's like all about this word self-awareness. And he's like, your greatest asset as like a business leader, when you become self-aware, you go on offense. And he pushes so much empathy and kindness. And he talks about the new business leader is someone who isn't like the dictator over their business, but instead like the servant leader who shows grace and empathy, like, and kindness. So I feel like there's like this shake that's happening. More off your point within society, and people are waking up and realizing, like, and maybe this ties into the spiral with a new consciousness coming into our world. Like, that's crazy, bro. Like, what do you think that, like, how does that even happen, man? This new teal and all that stuff.
I think you nailed it. You just nailed it, because what the spiral shows is that consciousness over time has an upward trajectory and increasing ability for compassion, wholeness, empathy, complexity, depth. And what you're seeing right now is just a natural evolution of consciousness. I mean, I've noticed it in so many self-help circles, how prominent the idea is that you're the observer of your thoughts. You're not your thoughts. A lot of people live completely wrapped up in their thoughts. Like their thoughts just completely control their lives. And a lot of self-help circles are like, no, actually you're the awareness that's aware of your thoughts. They're creating a distance between people and their thoughts. They're the awareness and their thoughts, which is a very, very like a very profound spiritual idea, and also a very practical, like everyday kind of help to people, because it's like if you so there's a merging of these really important spiritual concepts and spiritual teachings, and just like practical kind of self-help, self-actualization, self-awareness kind of teachings, which I think is beautiful, because it's just showing the natural convergence of people wanting to live better, healthier lives, and these complex, I shouldn't say complex, and these spiritual, because it's not complex spiritual topics. It's actually very simple spiritual teachings. That's the powers and the simplicity. So I have loved seeing how mainstream a lot of this stuff is getting. I've been even when I watch a lot of movies, I've noticed just even in Hollywood how many spiritual themes are becoming more prominent. Like the movie Soul. And there's a movie called, I haven't seen it yet, but a movie called Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds, which apparently is about awakening. Like you're seeing people, all these people in culture are like, art is now being infused with these ideas. It's really fun when you can start to see all the different ways in music and movies and art and self-help circles. And you see the way that these spiritual themes are really becoming prominent. And it's just like really, really exciting, because it's just showing that, like how consciousness is developing.
It's so funny, like to have this awareness, right, of what's happening in society, and yet you can take like two other people and they'll be talking about like how bad things are getting. Like, man, like what the fuck, like dude, like what is happening, you know? And it's like, I know, or at least I believe like what I see inside of me and stuff like that. But then, well, espera, Oli, estoy en el teléfono. But bro, like there's something like occurring, and I really like believe that, man. And so it's just, I think it's how you see the world, man. Life is happening for me, or life is happening to me. I'm a victim, or
Totally. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's like one of my pet peeves is when people do that, like, oh man, the world's just going to shit, you know, the world is just everything's bad now. It's like, I've never heard a person say that felt like a happy person to me. I've never felt a person that did that whole kind of like, it's that kind of nihilistic kind of like, I'm super intellectual and I see the whole world and see how everything's going to shit. Every time a person has said that and used that kind of language, I've felt the discontent within them. And I felt that really what they're trying to say is that I'm not happy in my own life, and I'm projecting that out onto the world. Because if you actually look at the world and you actually look at the development of humans, the development of consciousness, it's all the research, the data, the analysis, all the brilliant thinkers are pointing to the fact and showing that everything is actually on an upward trajectory and getting better. It might not always feel that way. Of course, there are minor setbacks, and there are, there's pandemics, and there's bad things that happen. Of course. I mean, it's not like everything is just always just, everything is always just getting better. There's little things that go wrong. And of course, but if you take a really, really wide kind of meta view of everything, you see that consciousness and humans' ability to love each other and compassion and empathy is actually on an upward trajectory. So I think anyone listening that ever hears people do that kind of like the world's just going crazy, feel into the energy of how that person feels, and you can feel that there's something that they're not at peace with in themselves that they're projecting onto the world. It's a very the ego loves projecting the parts that it's not at peace with out onto the world, because it's a very easy thing for the ego to do. Is, oh, it's not a problem within here, it's a problem out there. It always goes back to how the person feels in their heart and their personal because whatever
Man,
they're saying
that's
about the world goes back to them.
yeah. I mean, and it's not even true for the way they see the world, but it's through the way they see another human.
Yeah.
And like how we see them and how we see the world is a confession of our character. It's a confession of our heart. It's like this is where I stand right now. Like the world is a beautiful place. The world is an awful place. Like
Exactly. Perspective is everything. Perspective,
yeah,
it's all, and that's a huge aspect of spirituality is viewing the present moment from a positive perspective. And
yeah,
what it's actually what's happening in the present moment is actually not as important as viewing the present moment from a positive place and actually making peace with the present moment.
yeah,
And it's a
yeah,
lot of people live their lives. The present moment has to fit certain criteria for them to be happy and satisfied.
yeah.
And
That's
that's one
so
of the
good.
challenges of spirit. It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, it's not easy to be satisfied with the present moment, even when the present moment doesn't feel like it's working for you. You know what I mean? Or there's things you don't like, but
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of the reasons why we incarnate is to go through these challenges and to grow.
yeah.
If it was easy, we wouldn't really be growing.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the only thing that creates growth, right, in the human and is the pain, is the struggle, is the
Yep.
suffering. That's what builds the character. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, actually your pops was talking on the podcast the other day, this line from Hebrews, and it was talking about Jesus, and the line was like, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, scorn.
Mm,
And it's like yes, like yeah, this difficulty, whatever, but for the joy that's before him, like you endure it. Like it's not
mhm.
it's to say like suffering is going to come, but there is joy present ahead of us, and so we endure it and we stay grateful in the midst of the suffering.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such a powerful line. When we're fully present and when we fully feel the suffering and pain of life, it allows us to then fully feel the joy and the pleasure of life too.
Yeah,
A lot of people try to escape their pain and cut themselves off from suffering and try to escape suffering and try to escape the present moment. And then they're not able to fully live life in its fullest expressions and the
oh,
pleasure and the joy too. So part of life is accepting the present moment, and if there's pain and suffering, accepting that. Then when there's joy, you can accept that. So it's the
yeah.
duality. It's the duality of pleasure and pain, joy, suffering, and being able to make peace with all of those and accept all of those is the challenge.
It's why it's like we would never love a Disney movie that didn't have any drama. Like what
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. That's such a great analogy, because when people like, it's a common human. I mean, it's one of the most universal human kind of questions about life is, why is there suffering and pain? Why do bad things happen? And it's a total, I mean, I ask it all the time. It's a total normal kind of response to some of some of the hardships of life. But it's like the drama isn't a drama if there isn't trials and tribulations and challenges and hardships. It's like we don't go to the movies just to watch the main character not have to go through anything, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's there's a really cool thing happening in society, dude. And like you see it and you hear it in music, like the
Mm-hmm.
conscious rapper, like that didn't exist in the 90s and he wasn't played on the radio, or even sports and like this desire for racism to end, like in all sports, or the equality with women in sports. Like people are realizing, hold on, like there's something more here. And meditation, like more people meditate now. Apps are coming out. And it's for so long, like spirituality was always seen as like, okay, there's like the spiritual and then there's the secular. And it almost feels like they're coming into one fun.
Yes.
And that's really exciting for people that claim to be spiritual, like ourselves, or that have an awareness of it, because not everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
But it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be alive, man. Really.
Super exciting. I think about this all the time when especially when people do that thing that I was talking about of like, oh, the world's just crazy now. I'm like, no, the world is like things are way more advanced. People are way more aware than they used to be. Even like 20 years ago. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you think I hear some of the stories of like stuff that people, like my partner Tina, like she tells me some of the stories about when she was a kid, and I'm just like, oh my God, what a like a way different world. It was so much less
Yeah.
accepting of people that were different, and like there's so much more to acceptance. And like you just brought up, like you see like the NFL tackling, like trying to tackle racism and
Yeah.
and inequality, and just booting people like John Gruden who are just like not living up to certain ethical standards. You know what I mean? Like you see
Yeah.
there's a new level of accountability in a lot of places, because there's just certain stuff that just doesn't fly.
Yeah.
And there's just a growth in a lot of these different areas that's really beautiful to see.
Especially in one area we haven't mentioned that much is in the political realm, in politics and presidential elections, and like wanting to see like someone's character and like all of them, not just how it used to be like you do your job and the rest, we can, pass the eye to. But it's like, no, we want the whole person. We want to see them, and we're reading their energy.
Totally. Yeah. No, in the political realm, it's in the political realm, you're definitely, politics is so tricky because, it's like there, you can have expressions of higher consciousness, but there's so many parts that are just like rotten about the system that even the people in higher consciousness have to kind of operate within the system that's just like so kind of
It's
rotten
so
and
blue,
corrupt.
so blue, right?
So blue. So yeah, no, politics is a very fascinating field. I was a political science major in college, so how the spiral really helped me understand the political dynamics even more. So anyone listening that's interested in politics, I would highly recommend checking out spiral dynamics and seeing how that even helps your understanding of political dynamics and political relations, because it sure did that for me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. Bro, I love wrapping it up with you, man. Like I love talking to you, bro. This is good stuff, man.
Yeah, it's so good.
This is really good stuff, man. Yeah, man, I hope to see you. Actually, are you going to any of your dad's shows?
Yeah, I'm going to Atlanta, then Nashville, pretty soon.
You're doing
I'm going,
Atlanta?
yeah.
Oh, bro, I think I'm gonna go to that one because that's
Oh,
really
no way. Are you gonna be there?
yeah. Because Miami to Atlanta, like, or Miami to Nashville, but Atlanta's even closer, dude. I could.
How far is that drive? Like 6 hours?
Oh
8
no,
hours?
no, I would fly.
Oh, you'd fly. Okay.
Well, it's super cheap from Miami to Atlanta. It's like 2 hours, bro.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, Tina and I are gonna be there. We'd love to hang out with you.
Dude, that'd be so dope. Because I think it's back-to-back days, right? Atlanta, then Nashville or something.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So do you guys get there like on the day of?
I think we get there a day before. I'll let you know our plans, because Tina has our plans and everything. I'll message you.
Dude, I'll be there, man.
Awesome.
I'll be there, dude. I'll kick it with you guys.
Tina's gonna be so excited.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure, brother. Dude, it's been really nice talking to you, man. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for talking and just getting to know you more and hearing your heart, bro.
Oh, thank you. It was my pleasure. Yeah, it was so fun to meet you and live in the spiral. I'm so glad I have you. I'm so glad I have someone on Twitter I can actually send soccer stuff to, because I've been looking for soccer homies on my Twitter. So yeah, I'm so glad we met and became friends.
100%, bro. 100%. And I guess I'll be seeing you like in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, brother. Much love, dude. Have a great rest of your day.
Much love. You too.
Yes, sir. Bye.